Welcome. I'm Samantha Mackay, Enneagram coach, certified by the Chestnut Pies Enneagram Academy. And I know we tend to come to the Enneagram and we find it during times of healing or awakening, at a time when we're discovering the limits of our personality's survival strategies, where we just can't see how to get what it is we truly want in the way we've been trying for decades. And usually it means in this moment we're grappling with chronic illness, a divorce or an almost divorce, a redundancy, a death. There is some big shifting or quakening in our lives that leads us to the Enneagram. Because the Enneagram really shows us how to deeply reconnect to and discover who we are. And that matters in our relationships and in seeking the deep fulfillment and satisfaction and the purposeful life that many of us crave. Because unless we're connected to ourselves, it means that we can't set our own boundaries. We can't stand up for what we truly believe in. We can overreact or be overly impulsive at times when we actually want to hold back, and we hold back at times when we really need to move forward. We get caught up in so much of what's happening within us. And that's especially true if we're in an environment that doesn't help us get to know ourselves better. But there's a reason we struggle to get to know ourselves, because it's scary and it's uncomfortable. And it's called work for a reason. And here's what happens with it. When we start to observe our patterns using the Enneagram, we start to notice that the more we see them, that there's something behind them, something that's fueling them, because it's a defensive pattern. And the thing that's fueling it is uncomfortable. It's something that we haven't been able to tend to. We haven't had the capacity in our nervous system, in our ability to sit and observe ourselves. We haven't had the capacity to stay with those uncomfortable sensations and thoughts and feelings. And what we discover is when we can sit with those, when we can build the capacity for that, which we often do through a range of practices on our own, such as meditation and journaling, but in partnership with coaches and therapists, and also in groups at retreats and other types of events, that when we can sit with that discomfort, we can listen to it and we can hear it and we can heal it, we can integrate it. And when we do that, we start to fill these inner holes we have within us, these holes that we've been trying to fill through external gratification. And some of those obvious sort of strategies are overworking and overexercising and overshopping and over-consuming, whether it's books or movies or games, whatever it is. But as we start to peel back those layers and set ourselves free from some of those coping strategies, we notice actually there's a deeper layer of coping strategy. And that deeper layer is the habitual patterns of our personality. This is why I think it's really important to understand personality through the lens of functional to authentic. And what that means, in the way Gabor Mate explains it, is that our personality is a jumble of genuine traits and adopted coping strategies that represent the loss of ourselves and the disconnection from ourselves rather than who we really are. And yet we live in a society that celebrates the coping strategy rather than reconnecting to who we really are. And that hasn't always been the case, but we live in a society that benefits from our need to disconnect from our pain and be comfortable and have convenience, as opposed to really getting to know what's underneath. Now, the Enneagram isn't the only model of development you can use. The reason I like it is that it's very specific about what we're looking for, and it provides the tools and the resources we need to observe them, get to know them, and expand out of them. And I know historically, the Enneagram has been seen as a space for spiritual development, but I think it's really key to understand that without psychological and somatic development, we can't truly walk the path of spiritual development and all that that means. And so my role here as an Enneagram coach is to help you start to observe the patterns in whatever you're applying it to, whether it's your relationship, your career, your illness and your health, or just your general path of inner work and whatever that means for you. And so I love the Enneagram because it gives us such focus and because of its complexity. And I know the complexity can be so overwhelming, but the reason I love it is because we are complex systems. we are complex beings. And if we're going to walk this path of deeply reconnecting with ourselves, we need a system that can go with us all the way, that speaks to all the different nuances of how our system works. And the Enneagram does that. But I think it's also really essential to know that you don't need to learn that whole system up front. And in fact, it doesn't really help you. This is confusing, overwhelming work, regardless of how much of the Enneagram you want to bite off at a time. But as someone who has spent 10 plus years healing from chronic illness and autoimmune conditions and chronic pain, anxiety and depression and insomnia and a whole list of other illnesses, focusing on what's most important and most effective is really important to me. And this isn't about the work being fast or quick, but it's about focusing on what's going to have the biggest impact for you, focusing on what matters. And yes, that can at times be uncomfortable and difficult. And sometimes we'll do that work together. And sometimes I'll recommend a different kind of specialist to support you. And I think that's really key. But what we do with the Enneagram together is identify which part of your psyche is calling for healing and growth in this moment and applying the right thing to the right thing. And to me, that is the power of the Enneagram, is its ability to help us focus on what matters amongst the complexity that is our humanness and all that we are, and how we start to reprogram our minds and our psyches based on what we programmed in childhood that we did in order to figure out how to survive and navigate the world we live in, and to reprogram it so we can start showing up in the way that matters most. And at times, these changes happen really incrementally, and it can be hard to observe in ourselves, but it's something that the people who live with us will notice first, that we become just a bit easier to live with. We start to show up more effectively in our conversations at work or in our communities, and whatever that looks like. And we live in uncertain times, economically, politically, climactically. What I think makes a difference here is the more we connect to ourselves, the more we start to feel stronger and more resilient within ourselves. Our resilience doesn't become fake. It's not something that we're using to paste over all the discomfort. Our resilience becomes authentic, and we can stand in that uncertainty and make choices that really align more with who we are and what we want to see in the world, what we want to see in our relationships, and the way we want to live more purposefully and on purpose. And so my role in all of this is to support you on your journey of healing and growth. And we do that not by trying to just focus on creating something new, but actually looking at you holistically using the Enneagram. And our aim is to help you expand your ability to hold conflicting emotions and conflicting thoughts and to sit with that discomfort so you can make choices that are more aligned with who you really are, not with how your system is trying to defend or protect you in each situation. And so that's work we do together in collaboration, in partnership. And so, yes, I love the Enneagram for its complexity, but it's important we know where to start and we build a good foundation block without getting overwhelmed by it. And which is why I recommend starting with subtype, by identifying which of the instinctual subtypes is most like you, one of 27, and starting to get to know yourself through that lens. And I call it a foundation stone and a good place to start because it's often some of the more easier things to see about ourselves. And it helps us focus holistically in the complexity, helps us focus on our actions, our feelings, and our thoughts, and starts to teach us how to explore what's behind those patterns and how to heal and expand out of them. It provides very clear pathways in order to do that, which I think other parts of Enneagram growth work don't do. And other parts are also far more nuanced and require us to have built some of these skills first. So I think starting with subtype is essential. But it can be tricky to find your subtype for many reasons, which is why I can help you find your subtype through typing interviews. We'll do subtype coaching together, which means we really start to explore who you are through that lens. And then when you're ready, we can go deeper and helping you heal and grow and expand in your relationships and what matters to you through the dynamic lens that is the Enneagram. I realize that's a lot to process, especially if you're new to the Enneagram. So if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch. If you are interested in getting a juicy question about inner work every Sunday, feel free to sign up for my newsletter. All right. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And I look forward to connecting with you as you walk this path and wherever it may lead.